The Seattle Seahawks have a lot to prove this weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Happy Saturday. Active Saturday. We got 2 NFL games. Both of them are pretty decent. And then we've got 3 college football playoff games later today as well. So a lot going on. A lot of fun stuff to be had. But tomorrow is the main event. The Seattle Seahawks. They don't have to win this game to stay alive, but things slip away very quickly if you don't get it done against the Minnesota Vikings. This video is powered by BetUS. More on them a little bit later. And look, I would love to sit here and say that I have a lot of confidence that the Seahawks are going to get this win because they're desperate, because they kind of have to have it. They almost have to have it. And they're probably going to have a pretty good idea of that because the Rams game is going to be finishing up about the time this game kicks off. Assuming the Rams win, the Seahawks will be in a tight spot, and they're going to need it. And the Vikings, they don't necessarily need it. They're a 12-win team. They're one of the best teams in the league. They're on a 7-game win streak. They don't necessarily need to win the way the Seahawks need to win. And the Seahawks are coming off an embarrassing loss. They have a lot to prove to themselves and the world after the way that Packers game went. But I just don't know if the fundamental problems with this matchup can be overcome. And I hate to say it, because there have been many times watching this team, making videos about this team throughout the years, where I, as a Seahawks fan, have looked at a game and gone, the matchup does not favor us, but I still believe we're going to win because we need it more and because us winning would match the pattern of an NFL season. An NFL team is not meant to reel off an infinite number of wins in a row. There's a flow to it. There's an ebb and flow to it. And the Vikings, they've just won too many games in a row. And many of those games they have skated by the skin of their teeth. And the Seahawks, they need it more. And they're due for better play after what happened last week. So the rhythm of the NFL season demands a Seahawks victory on Sunday. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to get there. I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm going to sit down, hope they do good, hope things go their way. But it's tough to get there right now. So, looking at this one, it starts with that Vikings defense. They have one of the best defenses in football. Brian Flores has been in his bag this whole year. And the things he's doing with a defense that they have good players, but I wouldn't say they're exactly loaded with talent. You know, this is not the 2013 Legion of Boom. Getting them to play at this level, it's special. So that's the number one thing here. You've got Brian Flores and his boys cooking. Maybe they don't have Harrison Smith. They won't have Jalen Redmond. I guess they won't have Fabian Moreau, but they're getting Stephon Gilmore back. They've got, Van Ginkel rushing the passer. They're not even getting that much from Dallas Turner, and it doesn't even matter. Their number one pick has been very quiet this year and doesn't even really faze them all that much. That's how good they've been. You look at all that, and then you look at the Seahawks offense that, I'm sorry, is led by an offensive coordinator that doesn't know what he's doing. It's just hard to figure out how this one goes our way. And then you have all the other little things going on too, like the miserable play of the offensive line. Quarterback may not be 100% healthy. Running backs, probably close to 100% healthy, but you need every edge you can get in this game, and you're not getting the edges. It's like, okay, how do I get past this? Mentally, how do I see a win coming if I cannot get past that? Before we go further, though, I want to talk about my friends over at BetUS. You can head on over there right now. You can bet on the football games that are happening later today. Texans, Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens. Bet on college football. Bet on the games tomorrow, including this Seahawks-Vikings game. You can currently get Seahawks +3, not too bad. You can bet on over-unders, you can do game props, and if you use promo code YouTube150, you can get a 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000, and 125% deposit bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000. So head on over to BetUS, throw down some wagers. Lots of good sports coming up. You can bet on hockey, you can bet on basketball, you can bet on just about anything. Get your free money and go have some fun gambling on sports. All right, so yeah, that's where I get stuck as a Seahawks fan. This offense on their best day this year would have a hard time with the Vikings defense because almost every offense has a hard time with this Vikings defense. They have been really good in almost every game this year. So how am I going to believe that this offense, which is coming off one of their worst games of the year, is going to put it together against this team? So you got to try to keep it simple, man. Gino, get the ball out of your hands quickly. And Ryan Grubb, that means you have to give him the opportunity to get the ball out of his hands quickly. The Vikings, they are a team that will throw all kinds of exotic and fun blitzes at you. They'll send 4. They'll send the 4 guys that you weren't expecting they were going to send. They'll send 3 guys you were expecting and 1 guy you weren't. They'll send 5. They'll send 6. They'll send 7. They'll drop this guy back. They'll rush this guy forward. They'll do it all. And I will say the Seahawks had a decent amount of success against another defense that plays similarly a couple weeks ago with the Arizona Cardinals. But if you go back to 2 weeks before that against the Arizona Cardinals, that kind of defense really stymied them. So I don't know if I can sit here and say this team has gotten to the point where they can handle that kind of stuff better. Like, that's not really what I saw last week. Now, again, the Packers are a team that will play you straight up. They don't blitz. Most of the time, they just rush 4 and keep things very straightforward. But either way, however the Vikings decide to do it, if they play it straight up, I don't have confidence in this offensive line to physically block. If they play things tricky, I don't have confidence in this offensive line to keep up with what the Vikings will send. So all you can really do in this spot is say the quarterback needs to get it out of his hands quickly. And in order to do that, you have to give him the opportunity to. And what that means is that stuff that we saw last week against the Packers, long developing plays where Gino has to hold on to the ball, that can't happen. And this is going to be a great litmus test for whether or not Ryan Grubb deserves a second year. Because right now, I think my sense is most Seahawks fans are done with Grubb. And I would go so far as to say that even the mood of the more high-profile Seahawks people, guys like Corbin Smith, Brian Nemhauser, that crew, the beat reporters, the guys like me who make YouTube videos and have tens of thousands of subscribers, the people who talk about this stuff constantly, people have turned on Grubb. If he finds a way to get something good going against this Vikings defense, that'd go a long way in getting people off his back. Last week may have been the worst of Grubb. The week before that may have been the best of Grubb. So we're going to need something much closer to the best. And you're going to have to do it against a really good defense. You have most of your players. At least you got that going for you. You're relatively healthy. But that's not even the problem here. So I'm just hoping that Grubb shows a base level of competence here. I'm not expecting him to go out there and throw up 40 points, of course. I don't even know if I'm expecting 24 points. I might not even be expecting 20 points because I know how good they are. Just show me that you're smart enough to get it. No, you cannot expect Geno Smith to be able to throw the ball 40 yards down the field when he's playing against this pass rush. It can't happen. Or if it's going to happen, it better be max protect, right? And max protect presents its own problems, right? You can't always max protect and expect somebody to get open. So find a different way. Find the right way to attack this defense. And I'll tell you, if I see the things that I saw last week, The Ryan Grubb thing is going to be less of a casual indifference from me and more of a vendetta. And that also means running the ball, right? You got to run the ball. I do think the Seahawks have found something that can work with the gap scheme. Over the last 3 weeks, they've run a lot more gap and a lot less zone. I think it can work against this Vikings team because they don't have killers on that defense so much as they are schemed brilliantly, right? They don't have a Jalen Carter. They don't even have a Leonard Williams in the middle. They got some good players, right? They got some good pieces. No disrespect to their personnel, but it's not the 85 Bears. They're not going to dominate you physically. If you block things up correctly, and honestly, we've seen a little bit more of that these last few weeks, you can do something. And it's the only way you're going to be able to take pressure off of Geno. It's the only way you're going to get this game into a spot where Geno doesn't have to do everything perfectly to give the team a chance to win. And that's what we're trying to avoid, because if there's one defense out there this year that is going to make you make a lot of mistakes, then it's this one. And that's the sticking point for me as a fan, trying to figure out the pathway through. Straight up, I'll be honest, I think this Seahawks defense is going to cook something up pretty good this week. I got a good feeling about it. I'm scared of Kevin O'Connell because he's proven that he's a genius. But I think McDonald is not going to let another embarrassing performance, the likes of which we saw last week against the Packers. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to come with something, throw it at Sam Darnold. He's still not a great quarterback. I know he's producing good results this year, but it's still Sam Darnold. There's stuff you can do, and I think this team is going to do it. I think that we're going to be able to stop the run better in this game than we did against Green Bay. I think that he's going to come up with something to make sure you get pressure on Darnold and confuse him, because that's when he starts to struggle. Few different ideas for that would be maybe taking more risks on early downs. That's something me and the Hawks Nest talked about a little bit. Take the risk on early downs and live with the results. If the Vikings still beat you, then they were probably going to beat you anyway, right? If Justin Jefferson catches an 80-yard touchdown pass, okay, I mean, maybe if you didn't do that, maybe if you didn't take that risk, he would have caught 5 10-yard passes and the Vikings score a touchdown anyway. So I'm not going to despair over that. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still not going to be easy, right? This is not the week where we have to be at a mental low point, which is where I am with Riq Woolen. I am at a low point with Riq Woolen, and now we're dealing with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. How do you deal with that? I don't know. Do you just let Devin Witherspoon try to stick with Addison, and then you have Woolen and a safety double team Jefferson every play? That might be the play that takes you out of your defense, though. And then do the Vikings put together a running festival on you? Do they just put together a dominant rushing attack that makes everything else not matter? They got TJ Hawkinson back now. Vikings haven't had him for a good chunk of the year. So that's another weapon in the middle of the field. How do you deal with that? I think that the defense is going to come together after last week's embarrassment and play much better. But is it going to be enough? That's the part that I struggle with. I have a good feeling about the defense simply because I don't think Mike Mack is going to be cool with what happened last week. And I think he's going to cook up something good. I do. So that part of the game, I feel all right about. But what are you going to have to hold them to? Are you going to have to hold them to 10 points to win? Are you going to have to hold them to 13 to win? Maybe. It might be that kind of game. And that's a big ask. This is still a very talented offense. Like, I'm not a Sam Darnold guy, but it works fairly well within this system. I think the Vikings offense is ranked like 8th in the league in scoring. I think. Something like that. So it's not like it's not working. We have a big sample size of it working very well. And they've even bounced back from losing Christian Darrisaw. They lost Christian Darrisaw earlier this year. The offense fell off for a while, but now it's kind of bounced back. So get pressure any way you need to do it. If you need to send the exotic blitzes on first and second down, do it. If you need to risk blitzing on rush downs and then they run the ball, then that's something where I'm willing to live with the results a little bit. And I think we just got to say that Devin Witherspoon, Addison's your guy. You got to take out Addison. We're double teaming Jefferson, and we got to live with those results too. And I think it'll come together fairly well. But when it comes to actually winning the game, I'm more in I'm like 20-13 Vikings. 20-13. And again, that goes against all my instincts as a football watcher. Because this game is like the definition of a game where the Vikings do not match the intensity of the Seahawks. And the Seahawks get the win because they desperately need it, and the Vikings don't. And by the way, if the Rams do somehow lose to the Jets in the early window, then honestly, that might not even be true, because then the Seahawks would probably be more in line with, well, now we don't desperately need the game. So that could change things, just putting that out there. But assuming the Rams do what they will probably do and beat the Jets, we should want it more. We should have more fire and more intensity and more drive. But I still can't get there. I cannot get there because I don't know how we score enough. I don't know how this offensive line protects against this Vikings pass rush. I don't know how Ryan Grubb gets the best of Brian Flores. That's a laughable mismatch. And I don't know how you win that way. Maybe it's turnovers. You got to force turnovers and set up easy scores, or maybe get some defensive scores. Maybe Jalen Darden needs to house one. You can make up some points that way. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I don't think it'll be a blowout. I don't think this Vikings team is in a state to blow us out. But I'm going with 2013 Vikings. I'm giving them a chance to prove me wrong. And I feel like them proving me wrong is a little more likely than in some previous years. There were games over the last few years with Carroll, with his defense, where I just felt like, well, I'm going to show up and watch because it's kind of my job, but I have no real hope. I get a little more hope this week. But we're going to need to blow away the memory of last week's Packers game, because that one is still living in our heads a little bit as Seahawks fans, I think. And this would be a great week to wipe it away by at least showing up against the Vikings. So let's get it. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Thank you to BetUS for powering this video.